Good day, Canada. Haber Upley here. You've heard the news, you've read the headlines, and now it's time to see the big picture. Today we're going to talk about a man who used to believe that the people have spoken clearly. A short while back we sat together and talked about a man holding his breath, a child at the dinner table, the meal on the plate. And instead of eating what was there, he held his breath and waited for someone to fold. I told you then he hadn't exhaled yet. He still hasn't. But the holding of the breath has become something louder, something with more arms in the air. Let me tell you about a man named Doug. Doug is retired. He has lived in the northeast part of Calgary since 1991. He has had the same coffee maker since 2009, and he will tell you, straight-faced, that it makes a better cup than anything at the shop down the street. Doug votes in every election he can find, municipal, provincial, federal. If there is a question on a ballot, Doug shows up to answer it, because Doug believes that is what you do. In November of 2018, Doug drove to his polling station on a Tuesday evening and cast a ballot. The question on the paper was simple. Should Calgary bid for the 2026 Winter Olympics? He voted yes. Because the mayor had asked him to. Because the mayor had spent months making the case. And because Doug trusted the process. 56.4% of Calgarians voted no. 304,000 people cast ballots. 171,000 said no. The city was clear. And the mayor stood in front of the cameras and said something that Doug has never forgotten. The people have spoken. The people have spoken in big numbers, and the people have spoken clearly. And this is very clear direction for where we go from here. The Olympic bid was dropped, because that is what happens when you run a plebiscite, and you mean it. Doug didn't get his Olympics. But he went home, made a cup of coffee, and thought to himself, that is how it is supposed to work. You ask, people answer, you respect what they say, even when you don't like it. He trusted that the man who ran that plebiscite believed in what he was doing. That was 2018. This week, that same man stood in front of cameras again. His name is Naheed Nenshi. He is now the leader of the Alberta NDP, and he called the provincial referendum fake. He called it a farce, a waste of money, a distraction designed to protect a premier with a horrific record. He said the premier would ignore the results anyway. And I will quote him directly here. It's not about the premier ignoring the results, which she will do. He guaranteed that the vote was meaningless. And then, in the same breath, he told Albertans they have to go vote in it. He also took issue with the government spending taxpayer money on a website to explain the referendum questions to Albertans. He called it an outrage. He said no one else had the resources to push back. Now, let us travel back to 2018, to his plebiscite. The one he ran, the one he called democracy. The yes side, the side Naheed Nenshi championed as mayor, had over $1 million in campaign money, professional consultants, advertising budgets, organized events, more than $1 million to make the case for yes. The no side, the people who wanted to oppose the bid, had $10. Not $10,000. $10. A reporter asked them about their advertising budget, and they said it was roughly the cost of a few cups of coffee with voters. The city of Calgary ran the entire exercise with public money. Nobody handed the opposition a check. Nobody said, here, take some of these public funds and make your case. The mayor used his platform. The city used its resources. And the people who disagreed had $10 and a handful of volunteers. That is the plebiscite Naheed Nenshi called democracy, where one side had $1 million and the other had a coffee budget, and not one word of complaint passed his lips about the fairness of that playing field. And then he announced his own campaign website, albertaforcanada.ca, launched that same day. The man who said no one has resources to push back had a website ready to go. He just forgot to mention it before complaining about websites. Lo and behold, the same press conference that opened with a condemnation of government spending on public information closed with a personal campaign launch. Same podium, same afternoon, inside of the same 20 minutes. Doug watched that press conference from his kitchen. He thought about November 2018, the polling station, the paper ballot, the mayor who stepped up to a microphone and said the people have spoken clearly, the mayor who honored what the people said even when it cost him something he wanted. In this day and age, you'd think a man would remember what he used to stand for. The gap between the man who ran that Calgary plebiscite and the man at that podium this week is not a short walk, my friend. It is a very long road, walked very quickly in the wrong direction. Now, here's the big picture. The man who said the people have spoken clearly is now calling a province-wide vote a farce. Same mechanism, same logic, different hands on the lever, different verdict. He is not concerned that democracy is being corrupted. He is concerned that democracy might produce an outcome he cannot use, and the numbers know it. Polling from earlier this year put the United Conservative Party at 49% to the NDP's 36%. Naheed Nenshi carries a net approval rating of -8. The more Albertans watch this performance, the further they walk away from it. Doug finished his coffee. He thought about what it felt like in 2018 to trust a process. To cast a ballot knowing the man who asked you to do it would respect what you said, even when it hurt. Then he thought about the man on the podium this week, flailing, screeching, launching websites while complaining about websites, telling Albertans their vote is meaningless, and that they had better go cast it anyway. That is not a man fighting for democracy. That is a man fighting for his seat. And every Albertan watching already knows the difference. The man who taught us what a real plebiscite looks like is now the loudest voice calling one a fraud. The people haven't changed. He has. And now you see the big picture. If you like this episode, click that bell at the top right-hand corner of the screen to follow us for daily news, Monday to Friday. Haver Uplay, signing out.